Hey, welcome everybody to webinar tonight with Bassmaster lead angler Brandon Card. My name is Tom Branch. I'm the promotions manager at Navionics, and we're excited that you signed in and want to participate tonight. We do these every couple months with a pro angler, and then we use our pro staff during the rest of the month's time. And excited to have Brandon Card on here tonight to help tie in some loose ends when you're using your Lowrance unit and your Navionics. I think there'll be some great information for everybody, and just excited. Brandon, fishing so far so good this year in Elite Series. Had a great time here.
Yeah, so far so good. Got off to a good start at the first two events. First one wasn't a spectacular event, but definitely finishing the top half. I finished 26, and then just kind of went from. So that was at the St. Johns River, and then the second one was Lake Lanier, and finished seventh there. So that was pretty cool to get a top 10 pretty early in the season. That really helps set the tone for the year. Just to get off to a good start means a lot. So the bad thing is that we're having to take a long break. So I'm real antsy to get back on the water. At Lake Hartwell, 1st of April for sure.
Yeah, great time of year to be fishing up there. That'll be a great tournament. Just a little bit about yourself that's kind of interesting to me. The first college angler to fish the Elite Series, which I think is just a great accomplishment. I saw so many college anglers just because of what I do. I coach at the University of Georgia, so when I go into the Elite Series at Lanier, I saw there's probably what 6 or 7 maybe guys.
There's way more than that.
Yeah.
One of the Bassmaster writers did an article about all the college anglers, and I think they said something like 20 or 25% of the field now is an ex-college angler. So that's pretty crazy. I mean, out of 75 guys, I mean, I'm not the best at mental math, but that's
Yeah, that's pretty good, pretty exciting.
that's like probably 15 to 20 anglers.
Yeah. 2 second place finishes in your elite career, and then also your career in it winnings are over 400,000. So you're on track to have a great year. Excited to keep watching you and following you, and I know the fans are too. You'll be at the Bassmaster Classic. You won't be fishing in it this year. Dang it.
Yeah, no. Being the East Tennessee boy, I actually live in Knoxville now. I didn't grow up in Knoxville. I grew up about 45 minutes north of there on Norse Lake, which that's my home lake. But we moved to Knoxville just because there's so much more to do there, and it's a bigger city, and so we've been living there a couple of years. But it definitely would have been nice to have fished that one, seeing that I live like 5 minutes from the lake. But that's fishing for you. I mean, you never know. You never know what's going to happen out there. So I'm just going to put a smile on my face and have a good time at the expo. And it should be, honestly, I think this is going to be the biggest classic ever. I mean, it's going to be huge.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. Navionics will have a booth there. Brandon will be there Saturday and be bouncing around between all your sponsors, probably booths, visiting people. Just to give everybody, if this is your first time attending one of our webinars, these webinars are recorded, and we do post them on the Navionics YouTube channel a day or two afterwards. So if you lose connection or something happens with your internet signal, you can always go back and watch it. And then also while you're attending, if you look on the right-hand side, there's a place where you can actually ask a question. And once Brandon gets done with his presentation, I'll come back on and we'll answer some questions we can tonight. We won't go longer than an hour, but we'll be done about 9 o'clock. So if you want to hang in, I appreciate it. And Brandon, why don't you get started, bud?
Yeah, just I didn't want to get super technical with this. I know there's a lot of people out there that are they buy Lowrance units and they're really just new to the whole fishing with electronics and finding fish and catching fish with them. And so I just kind of wanted to give just a good base understanding of the really important things to me And then if anybody has any like specific detailed questions about stuff that I did not mention in this presentation, fire away at the end. You know, I'd love to answer anything that you guys have for us. But, you know, basically what I'm going to talk about today, I'm going to go over Navionics Sonar Chart, Navionics Photo Overlay. You can go to the next slide. Structure scan, contrast, side scan ranges, sonar color palette, sonar sensitivity. Also going to be talking about trails, heading extension, range rings, waypoint management, custom pages, and file management. So, you know, I just want you guys to just kind of get a general overview of everything that Lowrance and Navionics has to offer. You know, obviously there's a lot more, but this will, you know, be a nice base understanding that will, you know, make you feel a lot more confident with your units whenever you go out and you know, try to get dialed into your units next time on the water. So let's go ahead and dive right into it. So Sonar Chart is something that not everybody knows is a feature with Navionics. And so basically what it does is it just increases the detail dramatically. As you can see, the top screenshot here does not have Sonar Chart turned on. The bottom one does. So you can just see like the tremendous detail of Sonar Chart. And so in some of the older units, you know, like I would say 3-4 years ago, it was called fish and chips, and now it's called Sonar Chart. But you can find it the same way. So, you know, basically, go to the next page. So basically, to find Sonar Chart, I lost the PowerPoint. There it is. So yeah, basically to find your Sonar Chart, just go to. So basically, you're on your chart there. Go to more options, and then go to Sonar options, and then basically all you have to do is just over there on that right hand side, just kind of, you know, take your finger and flip that up a little bit, because you'll have to kind of scroll up and you'll see it there. It'll say Sonar Chart. Just make sure that you click that on and you're good to go. So, you know, that's going to give you, you know, that super high detail that we all want out of our Navionics cards. So just be sure to keep that in mind whenever you buy a new chart and you put it in. Just make sure that Sonar Chart's turned on. So the next thing we're going to talk about is photo overlay, and so this is something that's pretty neat. You know, we all use Google Earth. You know, when we're preparing for a tournament, you know, we all get on our computer and try to find the little off the wall areas, you know, backwater areas. This is pretty neat because, you know, we now have the photo overlay built into our Navionics cards. So you don't have to be messing around with your iPhone out there on the water. You can pull it up directly on your Lowrances. So you got a full screen photo overlay deal. So it's basically in that same menu feature. You find where it says photo overlay, click on it, scroll down to where it says full, and just click on full, and that'll bring up the photo overlay option. And so where that's beneficial is you know, whenever you're fishing backwaters and, you know, going, you know, like way back in a creek, and you want to see, you know, what it does. I mean, like a lot of times, like the topographical maps will end, and so just the photo overlay shows you exactly what's there. So, you know, that's a key deal with the photo overlay option. Also, if you're fishing a grassy lake, you know, like Lake Gunnersville or you know, something like that, you can really see the grass lines on the photo overlay. So that right there really takes a lot of guesswork out of it. whenever you can see the grass lines. Also, one more thing that's pretty neat about the lakes in East Tennessee, a lot of our lakes fluctuate tremendously. Douglas Lake is the one that fluctuates the most. It falls about 50 feet during the winter. So from summer pool to winter pool is 50 feet. So what's neat about the photo overlay is that on some of these lakes, the photos were taken when the lake was down, and so that's exactly what happened on Douglas. Is that basically they took the photos whenever the lake, I think, was 30 something feet down. So you actually get to see what the humps and the long tapering points, what they look like on your photo overlay. So there's a lot of times that I'll bounce back and forth between my topographical map and my photo overlay just to get a better understanding of what I'm fishing offshore, especially on those lakes that fluctuate like Douglas, Cherokee, Norse. Those are just some of the ones here in East Tennessee, but that could definitely be utilized all over the country. So structure scan contrast. The thing about Lowrance, what I really love is that for the most part, out of the box, you power it up, you can pretty much use the defaults on everything. But what I'm going to talk about is just how to get dialed in with your Lowrances just a little bit more. So, some of the other units that I've used in the past seem like you have to tinker with them and really, mess with them to get them to read how you want them to read. Lowrance, on the other hand, it's pretty spot on, but this will help you kind of take it to the next level. So with structure scan, basically what I do is I change the contrast. So you can leave it at auto contrast if you want to, and for general fishing, that's going to be pretty decent. But what I like to do is tinker and mess with the contrast throughout the day. I mean, it's not just something that I do whenever I get to a different body of water, but I literally mess with that contrast throughout the day based on the depth that I'm fishing, the water clarity that I'm fishing. So with contrast, generally speaking, the deeper the water, the more that I increase the contrast. And so that played out very much at Lake Lanier, where I was fishing 40 feet deep a lot of times, and I really had to bump up that contrast to get the crispness that I wanted out of my contrast and out of my structure scan. So if you're fishing shallower water, you probably want to take the contrast down a little bit, a softer bottom. If you're fishing somewhere where you're not fishing around rock and there's kind of some silted areas, then you need to increase the contrast. So here's 3 images. I don't know if you can see the difference. They really showed up on my Lowrance when I took these screenshots, but your computer might not do it justice. But so basically the top one I have auto -4. So where it says A -4, that's just basically I'm decreasing the contrast by 4. And so that right there, if you can see, it's just everything looks a little bit too dull. It's kind of too dark. The next one, I increased it. It's A+9, so that's above auto, A+9. That one, especially on the right side of the side scan, you can see it just looks washed out. It's all too bright. So you don't want it too dim, you don't want it too bright. You want to find that happy medium. And so this third one over here, that's the happy medium. That's like A+2. So that's just slightly above auto. And for that particular area where I was, that is exactly what I'm looking for. So, it's it really shows the hard bottom. The hard bottom pops, but then it's not washed out either. So, it's light enough to be able to understand what the bottom composition is, but then at the same time, you can still see the structure and everything that's showing there. So definitely tinker with your contrast, and that'll help you maximize your structure scan whenever you're scanning around looking at stuff offshore. So the side scan ranges, that's kind of a debate that everybody wants to talk about. How far out should my side scan be? And there's some people that say, well, I just leave it on 60. 60 is where I have it. What I like to do, if I'm shallower than 15 feet, then I have it on 60. So 60 feet to each side. So as you can see, the top image there, that's 12 foot deep. So I'm going to have it on 60. And then if I'm 15 to 20 feet deep, then I bump it out to 80 feet on each side. And if I'm deeper than 20 feet, then I'll take it out to 100. That's on the next slide there, the 100 one. But I feel like that system helps me, see as much as I can with the depth that I'm in. But at the same time, I'm not zoomed out so far. Like, let's just say you took it out to like 150 feet or 160 feet or whatever. You're going to be zoomed out so far where you won't be able to see fish. So I don't ever want that to happen, because, I want to be able to see structure, but I also want to see fish as well. And so I feel like that 60 to 100 feet on each side is perfect for doing that very thing. And so the reason why I don't go 100 feet in shallower water is that you'll actually, with the angle of the transducer, you will actually lose bottom. So basically the angle will hit, the cone angle will hit bottom before it can even go 100 feet on each side. So that's why I vary it from 60 to 100. The next thing I want to talk about is just the sonar color palette. That's kind of a discussion that a lot of people want to argue with. I feel like these are the two most popular Lowrance color palettes out there. I would say about 50% of the people use color palette number 1, which is on the top there. And then about 50% of the people use color palette number 13, which is on the bottom. And so really the only difference in color palette 1 and color palette 13 is that the bottom of color palette 13 is brown. And so for me, my favorite is color palette 13, because you can see the hard bottom on the on the bottom of the lake. And so I got an arrow on a little area there that has rock just right there on that, kind of coming out of that drain. There's a hard spot, and there's rock right there. And if I didn't have color palette 13, I wouldn't be able to see that. As you can see, just right above, it's the same picture. If you glance at it, you would not know that there's rock there with the color palette 1. And so for that very reason, that's why I use color palette number 13, is that I can see some real subtle, rock, or, like a real hard shell, like, if you're looking for shell beds and stuff like that, they will show up in that yellow and red on top of that brown. So for me, color palette number 13 is definitely the way to go. So for sonar sensitivity, this is really like the number one thing that I tinker with whenever I'm, messing with my sonar, is I'll just mess with the sensitivity. It's very similar to what I do with structure scanning with the contrast. I just, mess with the sensitivity depending on the water clarity and the depth that I'm fishing. So a lot of times whenever you're in muddy water, there's a lot of sediment, in the water column. So you might have to bump down your sensitivity, because it's just going to be showing everything. It's going to be showing all that sediment. It's just going to make everything just too too blurry, kind of like that image on top there. It's just there's too much clutter. But then at the same time, if you're fishing really clear water, there's sometimes you need to bump up the sensitivity. And so the picture right below that one, in my opinion, doesn't show enough, because if you look real closely, those the small fish right there, those are not bass. They're like, either large shad or some white bass. But it actually makes the fish look smaller. So you definitely don't want that to happen. So the one over to the right, in my opinion, that's like the perfect situation. So that still shows just a little bit of clutter. You can see a little bit of specks, kind of in the water column, but not enough to just, totally just mess everything up. But the fish, still are the right size. Everything's looking good. So, that's what I do. I just kind of, take it up and down, just like I do with the structure scan contrast, until where I get that image, like it is right there on the right, and then I'm dialed in with the sensitivity. There's a few other things that I do. I take the ping speed up, to max. When I'm fishing deep water, I always run it on max. The only time that I take my ping speed down off of max is if I'm in real shallow water. And, if I'm flipping and pitching or something like that, I just don't want that pinging noise, just basically pinging constantly. I can take it down, all the way as low as it'll go, and I'll still be able to see, what depth I'm sitting in. But really and truthfully, when you're flipping and pitching, all you want to know is how deep you are. So, that would be when I would take the ping speed down. But really, other than that, with the Lowrance sonar, those are about the only two things that I even change from the defaults. So we'll just go ahead and dive into trails. A lot of people, in my opinion, don't really get dialed in with the trails as much as they should. There's some people that I fished with that just keep that one trail going, and then basically it starts to delete your old trail. If you have that one trail, it'll be good for about one day. So where you're fishing yesterday, it starts to delete that trail and add to where you are now. And so what I like to do is in a tournament situation is have a different trail for every single day. And I think this is really important, because there's a lot of times after you fish, especially for us on the Elite Series, we practice 3 days, and then, we fish, 4 days. So that's 7 days on the water. There's a lot of times where you forget where you've been. I mean, like specifically, like, generally where you fish, but you forget every single stop. And so, in my opinion, having a trail for every single day is the best way of knowing where you've been. And a perfect example of that was at the Mississippi River, or sorry, at no, not the Mississippi River, at the St. Lawrence River. I was fishing a bay catching largemouth, and I think I finished 20th place in that one. It was a couple of years ago. But I basically, found a large concentration of largemouth in this bay, and it wasn't that big of a bay. And so I would just fish as slow as I possibly could. And, I would go in there and catch 18 to 19 pounds of largemouth every day, which was pretty solid, that year. Last year, the St. Lawrence River was just on fire. It was crazy with the smallmouth. But this year, I was able to be pretty competitive with the largemouth. And so, I stayed in this bay for the whole entire time. I was in there. And so on the third day, I was kind of struggling. I probably had, maybe 15, 16 pounds around 2 o'clock. And I was actually thinking about leaving and, going and just trying to catch a big smallmouth just to get up to that, 18, 19 pound mark that I had been getting the previous days. And so I sat down and I looked at my Lowrances and I zoomed in everywhere, and I had trails for every single day. And you know, if you just would have glanced at it, you would have been like, well, you fished the whole entire bay. But I zoomed in and I was kind of scrolling around slowly, and I found this one stretch of bank that I hadn't been to yet. The whole entire time I hadn't fished it, and I was really surprised. It was probably only like maybe, you know, 100 yards long or something. And I was really surprised because I literally thought that I had fished it all. And so I ran over there with a few minutes. I probably only had like 15, 20 minutes of fishing left. Ran over there and caught like a 4 1/4, caught another, you know, 3 1/2, and I cold 2 or 3 times at the last minute. And you know, ever since that tournament, like, I'm convinced I'm going to make a different trail for every single day. For these that I have shown right here, you know, the ones in black, those were the practice days. And then, you know, basically day 1, day 2, day 3, I put a different color on those. But generally speaking, in practice, you don't fish the same areas in practice. So I just keep all those black, and then I add a different color for my competition days. Heading extension, this is something kind of simple, but you know, it's very important. So just basically, when you're on the main screen, just click on the settings icon up there at the top, go down to chart, and just make sure that your heading extension is turned on. And so I have a heading extension on my Lowrances at my console, as well as my Lowrance up there at the bow of the boat. So the heading extension is very key whenever you're, you know, running down the lake. You know, there's a lot of times when you're, you know, making a long run across an expansive body of water, and if you don't pay attention to that heading extension, you can get off track and waste time. So, you know, like on those big runs, like if you're running, you know, out to Pelee Island or something like that, you know, heading extension is very key, just to keep you on track and, you know, keep you from swerving in and out and just really wasting time. So, you know, it's important from that standpoint at the console, but it really shines up there at the bow. So go ahead and go to the next page. So, you know, with the heading extension at the bow, I add that with range rings, and range rings is just, you know, right above that. So I don't have range rings turned on at the console, but I do up there at the bow when I'm fishing. And so basically what I do is I have my range rings turned on, and I have my heading extension turned on. And, you know, I have my point one, have everything tied into my point one. And so whenever I'm coming up to a waypoint, I can line up exactly and like make the exact cast just by, you know, watching where my heading extension, you know, meets my waypoint, you know, with those range rings. So, you know, with the range rings, what I like to do whenever I'm, you know, casting at targets, casting at waypoints, is I want my chart zoomed in to where the range rings are 50 feet. And so basically, if you can see here, you know, there's the first ring 50 feet, and then the second ring 50 feet. So I'm right around, you know, let's just say 90 feet from my target, which is about perfect. You know, somewhere around 100, you know, whether it's 90 or 110, 115 feet away. You know, whenever you make a really long cast, your bait's going to fall past your target, and you're going to let it sink down and get, you know, to that target and fish it effectively if you stay around that 100 feet mark. And so I always zoom in to where my range rings are 50 feet. That way I can make that exact cast. The next, so basically, waypoint management is a very key in my opinion. A lot of guys, you know, have just all kinds of just, you know, waypoints out there that don't really have a meaning. You know, they have just all these dots all over their screen. And, you know, I used to be like that. I would just drop a waypoint and then keep going. But I really think that it's super important to, add a description as well as a specific icon for every waypoint that you have. It's going to make you way more efficient on the water. So the way of doing that, so right here, as you can see that waypoint, go back real quick. That waypoint, all you do is you just click on that waypoint. That's just a green bubble. That's the typical one that everybody drops. So then basically click on that waypoint. And what I like to do is I like to add the depth that the structure is sitting in, and then I'll find an icon that looks like the structure. So in this instance, I got a tree here. So basically that stands for like a brush pile or something like that. So basically, that's a 25-foot brush pile. And so whenever I start catching fish, during the tournament, I can eliminate a lot of brush piles just based on the depth. So if I start catching, 2, 3, 4 fish out of 25-foot brush piles, then I can save a lot of time whenever I'm driving, to my next location, and I see that brush pile is in 15 foot of water. I don't even waste the time. I keep going until, I stop on the next one that's sitting in that specific depth where the fish are holding. So it just makes you way more efficient if you put an icon, what it is, whether it's a tree, brush, rock, hard spot. So find an icon that represents that and then add the depth to it as well. The next one. So something else to think about whenever you're casting to your target and you catch a fish. So, I'm casting to that brush pile that I marked in 25 feet of water right there on the top. So I catch a fish right there. What I like to do is I like to drop a waypoint where my boat is sitting. And so that way I can always stay exactly on that line. When you're fishing offshore, having the right lineup and making that exact cast is super important. And I used to not do this. I used to only have waypoints on the structure or the school of fish that I was fishing. But the last couple of years, whenever I catch a fish, I drop an extra waypoint for my boat location. So, I have a specific icon that I use for my boat location. That way I don't get confused and mistake it for structure. But I think that's really important. So like on the bottom screenshot here, you can see how the current has taken me closer to that brush pile. Now I'm only 50 feet from it. And honestly, if I wasn't paying attention and I was in the process of culling or whatever, and the current took me a little bit closer, then I'm not making that exact cast. So I dropped that waypoint exactly, right after I caught that fish, drop it right there. That way I can get back up, and even before I make that next cast, I just back my boat up to that icon and just wait till my heading extension swings around, lines up perfectly, and I can make that exact cast. So that's helped me be a lot more efficient fishing offshore. And here's all the icons that Lowrance has to offer, and I utilize a lot of them. I mean, obviously I've already mentioned the tree that stands for brush. There's actually rock. Obviously that'll stand for rock. We got grass, so I use grass icons all the time. If I'm on a grassy lake, I'll even write like an abbreviated version of the grass. So like I'll use the grass icon, but like if it's coontail, I might put coon and then I'll put the depth. So it might be like coon 8 feet, or if it's a hydrilla edge, I might put HYD, and then I'll put the depth that it's in. So that helps me stay more efficient, even with the species of grass that I'm fishing. So just take the extra couple of, I mean, honestly, it probably won't even take you a minute, you know, just a couple of seconds just to find an icon that means something to you, you know, throw the depth on there, maybe write a little caption, and it's gonna make you a lot more efficient on the water. So, you know, custom pages. I just, you know, I want you guys to know how to make your custom pages. You know, there's obviously default pages, which, you know, they have full screen chart, full screen sonar, and then they have a few split screen options that's built into the unit. But if you hit that little plus icon, that will take you to the page to where you can create your own custom page. And so basically all you do is you just go over there on that screenshot on the bottom, you just go over there to the left and you just start dragging and dropping, you know, what you want in there. So, you know, if you want like, you know, split screen of side scan and chart, you know, then you just drag those two. But what I like to do for my rear units is, you know, I've got two Lowrance HDS 12s mounted side by side at the console. And so for my left one, I have my chart and 2D sonar pulled up. And so basically what I'll do is I'll have my chart take up about 75% of the screen. And then my 2D sonar is only about 25% of the screen. So I adjust the splits on that and, you know, make the sonar side smaller. And then on my other screen, I'm going to have side scan and down scan, and I do the same thing over there. I got about 75% of the screen for side scan and only about 25% for down scan. So that's how I have my unit set up at the console, and then I'll show you what I do for the unit up there at the bow. So what I want at the bow is I want my chart, you know, with my Navionics pulled up. I want 2D sonar because, in my opinion, you know, I think that's the most accurate, you know, live deal, you know, right under your boat. You know, it's going to be the quickest to show you what the fish are doing, how active they are, you know, especially when you're fishing vertical. And then I also want down scan. And so I want those three pulled up. But if you drag those three, the default setting, you know, basically has, as you can see at the top, you know, has the chart, and then, you know, on one side, and then it has 2D sonar and then down scan on the other side. I don't really like that so much. I want all three to be side by side. So if you just click on that box at the top, scroll down, you can see right there where there's an option to have three boxes, you know, three rectangles side by side by side. So go to the next one and we'll show you what it looks like. So yeah, right down there at the bottom, that's what my front 12-inch Lowrance looks like. So basically I have my chart pulled up. It's big enough, you know, obviously with the 12-inch screen, you know, we got basically 4 inches of chart pulled up. So that's big enough for me to line up on my waypoints and, you know, make the cast that I need to make. But I also have my 2D sonar, which is, you know, very important for fishing vertical. And then I have my down scan pulled up. And I have the down scan running off of my structure scan 3D transducer in the back. And so that's pretty cool because a lot of times, you know, with a 21-foot boat like I have, you know, there'll be fish sitting behind the back of my boat, but they won't be showing up on the front, you know, just because of the cone angle. So basically I can see what's under the front of my boat with my 2D sonar, but I can see what's under the rear of my boat with the down scan, you know, because that's pulling off of the transducer on the very back of my boat. So that's very important whenever you're fishing vertical. There's a lot of times fish will be back there by your engine, and if you didn't have that, you know, down scan pulled up using that other transducer in the back, you would never know that it's there. And so there's a lot of times I'll be fishing on the front and I'll see something and I'll just, you know, pitch right under the engine and let it sink down and catch fish that way. So File management. So this is something that I used to not really do too much, and I would be one of those guys that had 15,000 waypoints on my Lowrance unit, and it was getting to the point to where um, it was clogging everything up, slowing everything down. Probably not 15,000, but it seemed like it, because I would literally never delete waypoints, and I would keep adding to it, and that's, for one, it's gonna eventually slow your unit down. The units are so good now with the computers that we have in them. It's probably not going to slow them down too much, but you need to stay organized, because whenever you revisit bodies of water, you wanna have your waypoints accessible. And so there's a lot of times in the past where I would let the waypoints add up for 3 or 4 or 5 events, and then I would save them, but I wouldn't realize or think back to where all I've been. So I might label it Lake Gunnersville, Wheeler, Chickamauga, and I might have 3 lakes on there on that file, but then I forgot that I had fished Douglas and Cherokee and stuff like that. So now pretty much every fishing trip that I do, I categorize all my waypoints with the lake and the date that I was fishing. So I think that that's the best way of doing it. And I always keep 2 SD cards. So I'll save them on one, pop that out, put another one in, and save them on the other one. So I'm going to walk you through how to save your waypoints to an SD card. So go back real quick. Basically just on the main menu, just look for the little icon that says storage. Some of the older Lowrances says files. So click on that, and then it'll take you to this option right here. It basically has waypoints, sonar logs, transfers. So basically click on the waypoints, go to the next page, and just click on where you want the waypoints to go. So in this case, it's going to be the memory card in the top slot. There's always going to be 2 slots, so make sure that you're assigning it to the correct slot. And then it'll prompt you right here. It'll ask export region, delete all. So just click on export, and then that'll take you to the next prompt. It'll ask you again, do you want to export or NEMA? And so just hit export again, and then the destination, memory card top, click that, and then there you go. You can name the exact body of water and the date. So that's very important, to put the exact date, put the month and the year, because there was a few times in the past where I would visit a body of water twice. And so I would have Lake Murray 2014, and then I would go back and Lake Murray 2014, and I would have 2 files. Obviously your waypoints are going to be different every trip. Sometimes you're fishing deep, sometimes you're fishing shallow. So if you add the exact month that you're fishing that particular body of water, it's going to be able to help you pull up the waypoint that you need the next time you come back. But it's all about staying organized. One last thing on file management is deleting waypoints. So after you export all those waypoints from your last trip, just go click on the waypoints again, right there where it prompts you, hit delete all. That's going to delete all your waypoints. And if your units are linked with a Ethernet cable, it's going to delete all your units at the same time. And then make sure that you purge. So after you hit delete all, then hit purge, and then that'll clean it all out of the system. The next time you launch your boat at a different body of water, you're going to be able to start at waypoint number 1 and you're going to be a lot more organized and catch a lot more fish. Just to wrap it up, guys, one last thing. Don't forget about the rebate that we got going on with Navionics. It's the trade-in rebate. You can get up to $75 if you trade in any card. It don't matter if it's an old Navionics card or a different brand. You just send that in the mail. We're going to send you a rebate after you buy one of the new Navionics cards that we got going on. So we can go ahead and open it up to questions and see where we're at there. I can't hear you, Tom.
All right. How about now?
Yeah, I got you now.
Yeah. I'm trying to make this bigger so we can see these questions, and it is very small for some reason. Sounds good. Let's see. I'm having a problem with chart, keeping my boat on the chart when I'm searching a new lake. How do I make the chart follow my boat?
What I'm thinking that maybe is happening is that they have cursored over, they had touched the screen and brought the cursor away from their boat. And so then, whenever they take off again, that chart is staying right there where the cursor is. And so all you have to do is go up to the top right and just hit restore cursor, and then that'll take you back to your boat and follow you along. And one other thing that I failed to mention is, for me, I always keep my chart with heading up. There's some guys that do north up, some guys that do course up, but with the 0.1 that I have right now, to be able to line up on things when I'm fishing, heading up is definitely the way to go. So basically, wherever your boat is, where the nose of your boat is pointing, that is, the chart moves around your boat, which on the other option, your boat kind of moves around the chart. So I think that's the best way of lining up on waypoints is heading up.
I personally believe the 0.1 was one of the best inventions ever, because I like to fish deep water brush.
The 0.1 was the biggest game changer, that we had ever seen. I mean, it blew my mind because, previously, if you had any wind or any current or whatever, your chart thought that you were going that way. To be able to have that heading, that built-in compass with that 0.1 antenna, it was huge.
Yeah. Neil asked your question. What do you consider shallow water?
It kind of depends for the body of water that you're fishing. My home lake, Norse Lake. There's 300-foot depths in that lake. So if I'm fishing, generally speaking, if I'm fishing deeper than 15 feet, I would say I'm fishing deep. But on Douglas, in May, we're catching, big largemouth and 45 foot of water. So like in that instance, I would probably say I'm fishing deep at 25 foot. But it's kind of all relative. But if you just had to, average out all the lakes that I go to over the course of the year, I would say 12 to 15 feet deeper would be deep. And maybe shallower than 12 foot would probably be shallow.
Gotcha. JT asked tonight, does auto do most of the stuff we need nowadays on our plotters?
Yeah, just a little tweaks and stuff that I said, but auto is pretty spot on. I like to dial it in a little bit more, but
yeah, and I like what you talked about too, Brandon. One of the things you talked about too was messing with that sensitivity, because definitely when the water's muddy or the changeovers happening in the fall, that's a good time to really play with that sensitivity.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the guys was asking, can you describe the setup on photo overlay?
Yeah, I mean, just I mean, basically, it's just like the Google Earth that we're used to looking at, but it's built into the card, and so you just have to, go over there into the menu option over there on the right, and it's the same process as finding the Sonar chart. So basically, it's like or it's like more options, then chart options, and then you just scroll up to the top and
Yeah.
it actually
The
says
other
photo.
thing I was going to say, the photo overlay, the cool thing to me about it is you can, on the Lowrance units, you can actually adjust how much you want to see with the slide bar. So, I mean, you can see full or you can, bring it down so you don't have all the power with it.
Yeah, yeah. Take the transparency down, and you can see the contour lines and the photo overlay. If you take that.
All on screen. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Question from Dale. Do you leave surface clutter and noise settings off or on low?
I do low. I do low on those. But honestly, I mean, if you take them off or put them on low, like it's a very minimal change. So I mean, it's probably 6 to 1, half a dozen the other, honestly.
Yeah. Which transducer do you run on the bow?
So I've been running the HDI up at the top, and I've messed around. So the HDI basically has, it's got the 200 kilohertz um, sonar. It also has the chirp. It's got low chirp, medium, high chirp, and then it has downscan as well. And honestly, I've messed around with chirp a little bit, but I keep going back to my 200 kilohertz. Like I'm just so used to fishing with 200. Um, it's just hard for me to really put in the time to understand chirp. But I do know that a lot of the saltwater guys and stuff, they're all about chirp. So I feel like maybe I need to tinker around with a little bit more. But 200 kilohertz on the HDI, I mean that's my bread and butter. Also, being able to have um, my down scan up there at the front. I don't use it very much because I use my down scan, at the rear, on my Search Scan 3D more than I do the down scan up there on my HDI. But just being able to have that as an option. So like there's sometimes I'll see something on the 2D sonar and it'll look like a brush pile or it'll look like standing timber, but I just want to make sure. So I'll flip it over to that down scan built into my HDI transducer up there at the front, and then I can confirm, okay, yeah, it is what I thought it was, or no, it's something different.
Old habits are hard to change, my friend.
They really
Transducer.
are. They really are.
Hey, one of the guys, I don't see his name, was asking about do you do any depth highlighting on your charts at all?
I don't mess with the depth highlight a whole lot. I mean, I'm so used to just running around and just reading the contour lines. But I mean, I do think that it's important, that it's a key feature. Definitely, with our app especially, it's super easy to use with our app.
Yeah, no doubt.
But yeah, I mean,
Can
I think
you?
I think for somebody just getting into it, I mean, being able to pull up that app and get dialed in to the depth they're fishing quickly.
Yeah. Um, is there one incident or not when you would turn on 80 megahertz versus 200 megahertz? Have you seen that
Yeah, I
situation?
mean, when I'm fishing vertical, there's a few times where like I'm just not seeing much with the 200, because it's a narrow cone angle, and so like if I think there should be fish around, I'll turn it to 83 just to get a wider cone angle, just to see if there's some fish around. Um, but that's about it because what I don't want to happen is to be especially when there are a lot of fish around to be dropping on fish that I think's under my boat, but they're really 10 feet over there. And so like with 83, I just found myself, just dropping way too many times on fish that were, honestly not right under my boat. They were to the side, they were right to the right or to the left or out in front. So, that's probably the only time when I do 83 is I'm just like, if I'm not seeing anything at all and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm scratching my head, like there should be something here,
Right.
just to see if the fish had moved.
One of the guys was asking about uploading your waypoints and transferring them like from the app to your depth finder. I can explain that. That's Navionics has it. It's called Plotter Sync. I think you guys use it a lot when you're looking at areas trying to study where you might go fish. And you can save a waypoint on the Navionics app, and then you can sync it with your Lowrance unit through the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. So that's a pretty cool feature.
Yeah, for sure.
What size SD card do you use for waypoint storage?
I mean, waypoints don't take up a ton of storage. I actually have an old GoPro. I think it's like I don't even know, 8 or 16, megabyte deal. But I mean, I've got so many waypoints on those. I mean, I've even had like a 1 megabyte SD card back in the day, and I had thousands of waypoints on that one. So they really don't take up that much space at all.
I don't know. This one says, I guess this goes back to the heading question. It said, boat not heading in the same direction I'm traveling, north up. Do you think it's a link problem? I would recommend calling Lowrance customer service and try to get somebody to help you. They got a great service department, customer service. They can help you. You can Google, I forget the 1-800 number. I don't have it off the top of my head, but Google Lowrance, you get their customer service number and one of their guys can walk you through it. I would guess that it's probably a signal issue, just knowing what I know a little bit about Lowrance units, or it might be a NEMA system question. So
yeah, or it could even be maybe an Ethernet cable that had been bent too much and had broke, and then it's not linking with your point one. But
how much accuracy do you gain from the point one?
Everything.
I was about to say.
I mean, it gets you like spot on. I mean, with a couple of feet. I mean, basically, if you have that point one and you're using that to line up on your waypoints, I mean, it's gonna keep you right where you need to be.
Once you calibrate it and get it right, there is nothing like it.
Yeah.
And it was. I was testing it years ago. I'll just quick story out on the Gulf. And I had a guy, we put it on his boat. He'd never seen one before, had an old Lowrance unit, and he could not believe that we could just sit right on top of that wreck and he'd go, it's on the left now. It's amazing. I mean, there's some good out there of it too. So
yeah, and honestly, I mean, you mentioned calibrate. I bet I got them where they first came out. So when was that? Like
4 or 5 years ago,
yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
So yeah, I'm on my 5th one, and I've never had to calibrate one. So I mean, very seldom you have to, but
that's pretty good.
Yeah.
How many lakes can you store on one card, or do you use multiple cards for each lake when you're storing your waypoints?
No, I mean I just have those 2 cards just just to serve as a backup. That's the only reason why I save the exact same waypoints on each card, just to have a backup card. But I've been using the same card now for 3-4 years. I mean, there's a ton of storage on those little SD cards, so
Yeah.
I'm not going to run out of space.
Yeah. Do you have a point one on the front and the back of your boat?
No, that's a really good question. So I put my point one on the back of my boat. I try to put it as close as I can to my Structure Scan 3D. Now, one thing to be careful with: don't put it too close to your engine. If you put it too close to your engine, then it'll mess up your magnetic heading, like the compass in your point one. So basically, I have it all the way at the rear to the outer corner, and so as long as you're like 3 feet away from the engine, then you're good to go. So that's where mine is. And so whenever I'm side scanning around, I'm going to actually use the GPS, for my waypoints that I'm dropping at the console back there. But then when I'm up on the front of the boat, I use the heading from the point one, but then I actually use my built-in GPS for my actual waypoints that I drop up at the front, if that makes sense. So my front Lowrance HDS 12 is using the point one for the heading, but it's using the internal antenna for the waypoints that I drop up there, because you don't want to be 20 feet off. So like if you just say I'm going to use the point one for all three of my units, if you're marking fish and stuff at the front, you're marking a waypoint back there. So you want the one up there at that front unit for your location for the waypoints.
Well, last question for the night. We're getting close to 9 o'clock. This is pretty good too, and it kind of ends the night perfectly. I bought a Platinum Plus card 2 years ago. Do I need to trade it in, or can I just renew it? And I'll just tell you, I'll help you on this one, Brandon. Tonight, February the 28th, 2019, is the last night that you can renew your card for $49.99 at Navionics.com. Go to Navionics.com, download the chart installer, and plug your card in, and tonight is it. It's been running the whole month of February. If you can go on there also, and you can mail it in if you want to, but you need to go on there and do it tonight. The trade-in is going on all year long. So Brandon and I and a couple other guys shot some video the last couple of days. You'll start seeing those on social media. We're really going to pump that. That's going to be cool all year long, because we hear and you hear at every one of these trade shows we go to and events, I don't know how to update my card. So we're going to help people. And all you got to do is purchase a new Navionics card. You put the receipt, a copy of the receipt in the envelope, and you drop your old card in there, and then we're going to mail you a check for $50 or $75. And you can't beat that. I mean, that's an awesome deal. So
it really is.
But hey, that's all for tonight, folks. I appreciate it. Again, like I said, Brandon, thank you, buddy. This webinar will be recorded on the and be added to the Navionics YouTube channel, and it'll be available in about 2 days if you want to share it with your friends. And we appreciate it. And I'll let you have the floor to end it, buddy.
Yeah, I appreciate everybody that tuned in, and if there's anything that we didn't touch on, feel free to message me on Facebook or Instagram, and I definitely like to chat with you guys a little bit more about getting dialed in with your Lowrances. But yeah, Tom, thanks for the opportunity, and y'all have a good night.
All right, thank you, bud. Have a good night. See you soon.